Okay.
All right, great. Hey, everybody. Thanks for attending today, the webinar regarding the 1.81 release. This is Keith. I'm going to do a quick overview, and then Sean McFeely, our product manager, will walk you through the enhancements that are featured in release 1.81. 1.81 should be posted live early next week. And just so you know, through this session, our MO is that we will keep everybody muted as Sean presents the various features. However, there's a chat box in the upper right-hand corner. So should you have any questions that you want to get to him, go ahead and just use that chat box, type in your question or your notes. And Paul, our testing manager, will field those and text them over to Sean, who will be able to respond. And we, generally speaking, will go through and spend about 30, 40, 45 minutes showing the features, and then we open it up to Q&A. And when I say open, I mean really open. Anything goes. And that's usually pretty lively session, so I hope you stick around for that as well. So anyway, just kind of recap high level so everybody understands who we are and what we're doing here. Our team size has grown over the years. We started out with 6 people today, depending on who you count. If you count consultants and our documenter, we're a 19-person team. We now have a 12-person team that works full-time on these enhancements. And we've done that so that we can walk and chew gum at the same time. We have multiple applications. They're all very, very common, but we are now addressing the post frame market with primarily wood framing, garages and sheds that largely have stick framing, and the all metal buildings market at once. So in each release going forward, and as you've seen recently, we're capable of addressing multiple issues for multiple markets, although the overwhelming bulk of what we do is pretty much going to be common to all these industry segments that we address. The one that's a little bit different, and a lot of people are aware of this, is we also are in something called Roofing Passport, where our software applies metal onto residential and commercial roofs. There's enough difference there that what we're going to be doing starting like right now, going forward, is we will start setting up separate webinars, breakout webinars, because that product group is different enough. So you'll be, for those of you who are interested in that, you'll be seeing separate webinar announcements going forward. And we're going to have that dichotomy. So Roofing Passport will have its own sessions, and we'll remain with post frame and other related buildings with this session as we go forward. Our highest level priorities, the highest level still remains to be barndominiums. And you're going to see a fair amount here. You're going to see certainly one fundamental set of infrastructure we're putting into place that is the kind of the prelude, and over several releases here, you're going to see the ability to input floor plans, interior room spaces, selecting and editing the placement of windows and doors, and so on and so forth. So you're going to see some very significant changes here today as it addresses the barndominium market, and we'll continue staying very focused on that. In this release, I just want to point out, we've always focused primarily in getting the materials right, and that means that your pricing is going to be right. And then after that, the quality and the nature of the drawings, and after that, the graphics. I think you're going to be very pleased because we have in this release the most significant improvement to the general graphic presentation of the building and the screen. And that's all I'll say about that. I don't want to steal too much of Sean's thunder, but you'll see a very big improvement there. You'll also see a big improvement in the drawings, especially on cross sections that people have been requesting for a very long time. Also, there's some very specific modifications for the all metal building market. We know that we've had to get some just fundamental changes there, and so we've got some. We hope that those are well received, and we look for input for additional enhancements that are necessary there. So kind of high level, that's just what I wanted to comment on. So I'm going to hand it off to Sean, and I hope you guys like what you see today. It's a pretty significant release. So Sean, all yours.
All right, thanks, Keith. I'm going to share my screen here, and let's see. Change this up a little bit. Do you see my screen?
I do. Yep.
Okay. Okay, so yeah, I'll jump right into this. There's quite a bit here. I'm going to have to be kind of quick with some of these things just because there's a lot to get through. So the first thing that Keith brought up are these new improved graphics. And just looking at it from this angle, if we just look at the building, we did change the lighting of this. There is now a source of light, and in this case, it's coming from kind of up here, if you can see that. And so if we do rotate this around, you'll see that there's a shadow that's come in. It's darker over here. There is more light to this whole thing. And then if we zoom out a little bit, you can see that we do have some additional kind of graphics that can come in with it, including these trees and then the sky and the clouds up here. And you still have these same capabilities as before. We can toggle the shell off and on. And the light does kind of change up some of this framing as well. You can see you get some different views of the different faces, which actually makes it easier to see some of this. So you can toggle the shell still. You can just get rid of this landscape still if you want. And you do have some landscape settings down here that you can control what you see here. You can get rid of the sky. You can get rid of the shadows and the trees. You can control how many trees or what the tree spacing is. You can kind of play around with this. Mine's at 275. And we do also have what we're calling shrubs. And if I turn those on, then you'll see we kind of get these little shrubs or grass patches or whatever these may be called. So you have control over these things. And we'll continue to work with these. If you have suggestions, let us know. We do want to do other things like maybe show a desert scene or a mountain scene, different types of trees, maybe, even crops and all kinds of different things that we have in mind here for this that we'll be, working on over the next several months. But if you do have suggestions or things you want to see, let us know. And do give us feedback on all this. I'm going to kind of just leave it at that for now, just because there's a lot to see here, but you do have control over these, and you can play around with these. I think the next thing I'll show, I do have this as a stud frame building here. And so one of the outputs that Keith referred to as well is this stud frame cross section, which we haven't really had. It's kind of not been working very well, but we've done quite a bit of work on that. So I'll just download a cross section of this and show that now. And I don't know why mine keeps opening up here, but we'll zoom in here and you can see that I have the rafters coming in, but there is a double top plate here. I have a double bottom plate showing. And it will call out the very top plate and the very bottom plate. Yeah, and the stud spacing. And so now we are outputting these for the stud frame buildings and the stud frame walls specifically. The other thing that you may notice here is I do have this footing down here. And so that's another thing that we've added in here. And I'll just go back to my job here and we'll jump over into these details. So part of this cross section, we have added this footing depth and the footing width that you can define. So in this case, for this stud frame building, I have a stem wall with a footing, a 1x2 footing. Right now, it's not going to be in the 3D model, but it is going to show up here on we got a bunch of these here. It's going to show up on the cross section, so you can see that. And it does get called out here. Here's my stem wall, the depth and the width of it, and it calls out the 1x2 spread footing. That's what we're calling it. So we'll continue to work on these. The other option that we've added in this release is you can use, we've called it a thick edge slab. So it's just another option here in addition to the post hole, the stem wall, and then this thick edge slab, which you can have a footing depth and width, which you'll see here in a second. But actually, this depth is not going to affect this thick edge slab here. I think I might have put that incorrectly into some of the release notes I sent out. But this thick edge slab is going to depend on your slab settings. If you don't have a slab, it's going to ignore it. If you do have a slab, whatever the depth may be, then it's going to add this in, and this is going to give you the depth of the slab. So I'll just make sure, so I'll just save this, and then I'll just output a cross section with this so you can see what happens here. And again, this is not going to come in the 3D model at the moment, but if we come in and do another one of these cross sections, then we will see what we're doing here with this. So now you can see, and we're playing with these. So as Keith mentioned, I'm working on the beta side right now. This is not released out to the wild, but it will be early next week. So we're kind of messing with these a little bit. These dimensions are a little bit difficult to see, but this 1 foot here you can see is coming down from the top of the slab down to the top of the footing, and then it's drawing just an angle up here, which is just pretty generic. It's just drawing a 45 angle up to the slab and coming across, and then I still have my 1x2 footing down here. So you can play with this. We can make this deeper. So those are just two additional foundation options that you have available now, and they'll show up on that cross section along with the stud frame information should be coming through. And of course, let us know about feedback. We can continue to work on these, and we will continue to work on this. Okay, let's see, what else did we want to look at here? So Keith also mentioned specific steel items, and this is going to be a little bit strange because it's kind of a hybrid building here. And I guess I'm just not going to switch it over to any sort of a steel right now because I can kind of demonstrate this. But one of the new things, and this is going to be under the roof framing, and down at the very bottom here, we've called this a gable rake material. And this is going to run up along the rake here with the rafters. In this case, I have a 2x4 material here. I guess if we change this over to a 2x6, we can see which one of these. There's kind of a lot going on in here. So you can use this with wood, but it's really designed more for the steel. And we did add in, and I'll just take this opportunity to show these additional shapes that we've added in with this release also. So these may not all make sense in this particular condition, but I'll just kind of show these. So with this gable rake material and with these new steel shapes, I had gone into my framing rules and into my materials and set these up. Not necessarily showing that during this session. I did show these shapes, I think it was last time, where we added some additional shapes. And I showed how to actually set those up, and we can go into those here at the end if we have some time. But anyway, I set these up in the background before this webinar, and these are the new ones that we've added. Though we do have a back-to-back C shape that I haven't shown here. We did add the back-to-back C as well, and we added this receiver channel, which I'll just switch over to this receiver channel. And then you'll see with this gable rake material, when I do that, it's going to show up right here. So I have my receiver channel coming in as my gable rake, and I set that up with this kind of gray iron color. And you can see it's going to be placed right at the top here of the gable over these purlins. So the purlins will come in, and it's just this angle shape sitting right there on the gable edge. And so this receiver channel probably makes sense here, maybe, but just to show, this gable angle bracket rotated is just another angle bracket. When it's rotated, it's coming in like this. Doesn't necessarily make sense in this case, but I just kind of wanted to show that off. The angle bracket is going to just flip this around. And, this one might also make sense in this particular case. And then I didn't show the back-to-back C. but there is a back-to-back C shape that would probably be used for something else, but that is available now. If you don't use these, if you don't need these should be hidden. Once it comes out, there's going to be none, no materials added to this. You really just won't even see this. It'll be in the framing rules, but you can keep it hidden if you don't use it. So that's that gable rake material, or rake angle, I think people call it. We called it gable rake here in the program. Okay, at this point, I'm going to have to switch over to a different distributor. I'm going to piggyback off of Royden's distributor. Hopefully he doesn't mind. But I'm going to stop sharing here for 1 second and switch over, and then so we have another system set up. I just didn't have time to get this system set up to show you it's kind of an advanced feature of using these product systems and the assemblies, and we have a new way that you can use colors in the program. And we're going to have a more in-depth session just on these topics here that I'm going to cover. But it'll take me 1 second here. Okay, so I'm going to resume sharing my screen. Okay, so I flipped over to Royden's system that he has set up just because he has this set up really nicely. I didn't really have time to get mine lined up. So we're talking about the product systems and the assemblies, and also how the colors work into this. This gets a little bit complicated. It is kind of an advanced feature. We are going to work to make this easier, but I wanted to just kind of plant these seeds so that you can see how these work and kind of get the juices flowing of how you could use these. And I guess the first thing I'm going to jump into, and these all kind of tie together, but this is a new feature for this release, which if we go into the colors here, then we can see, so Royden has a bunch of colors set up here, and these are kind of the standard colors that you're used to. You'll have your own colors here. And it looks like for some reason, did we lose the textures? So if we create a new one here, the thing that's new is that you can upload textures and bump maps to colors. And so we've had these before with the sheathing products for the panels, different types of siding. You could get different textures and different bump maps on there to have a different look for those for different materials. You can now set these up for colors themselves, and these were set up a little bit different. It looks like, I don't know, Royden, if you are on here, but it looks like maybe these got changed.
Royden says they're there, they just don't appear on that screen.
They don't appear on this screen, okay. Okay, well we'll skip over that. So you can come into the colors and you can upload bump maps and textures into the colors themselves. So it's not just a flat color, but you can get kind of the images that we have for the different types of wall and roof products onto colors themselves. And you'll see how this works in a second here. I guess they don't show up here. I thought I saw them show up before, but so anyway, if you set up these colors, you get the textures into here, and this is something that we'll clean up to where you can see the textures. Right now they all just show black. So this, I'm going to jump into the setup wizard here. So now we have some colors, we have some textures set up with them, and if we go into the setup wizard, actually, okay, this is probably where I should have come. you can do these colors here in the setup wizard, which would be a smarter way to do this, really. And I think if we come into here, okay, yeah, this is what I used to seeing. So if you come and do these, you should come into the setup wizard and set up the colors. We're kind of phasing these out. But if you go into the setup wizard, do the colors, you can see here, Royden has these set up with the Owens Corning, like different colors. And you can see that he has these shingle, different textures set up in the colors themselves. So it's kind of just another way to do this. There's several ways that this can be handled, but this is just one example. And then he has some colors for kind of like a stone color as well. And these colors can be applied to materials, and they will show up with these textures. So that's the colors there. This is the best place to come in here and work on these. If I can show you here, if we come into this one, if I double click and open this up, you can see that for this color, for this amber color, it doesn't have a color, it's just black. I guess that's why that showed up black in that color list, but Royden's given it a color code. There is a color map that he has set up, that's this OC Amber, that he uploaded into the system. And it's really, this is just an image file, and you can create these in anything really that can produce kind of a JPEG image file. And we're going to go into this in another session in depth. There's just too much to go into here, and it's so that's something we'll cover in depth in a different session. But he uploaded this color. He created this to make it look like this kind of shingle. The bump map, he kept this smooth, and it's one of these details here on a particular material. If you have a bump map or color map on a material itself, it's going to override this color. So just something to keep in mind if you're doing this and it's not picking these up. It may be because your material is overriding these, because you can have these kind of things on like a specific sheathing product or a shingle on the material itself. In this case, we're using the color to add in the color map or the bump map. So that's what's new here, and you'll see how that works in a second as to how that can be used. But there is a distinction between these colors and the materials themselves, and the material will override these colors. It's just one of those important things to keep in mind. So we have this set up. He has a smooth bump map, which really the color map is going to kind of take care of the color and the way that this looks in this case. And one thing that's important to note here is this color itself is included in the asphalt shingle roof system. So this is where we'll get into the systems a little bit as well. So we have this color set up, we have a color map, we have this in a particular system for the asphalt shingles. And in this case, there is a separate systems. In this, we're going to clean up. This is kind of confusing, and this is why I'll have another session, but Royden has added this asphalt shingle system into his program here under the settings. And then if we go back into the setup wizard here, you can also do some work on these systems in the setup wizard. And so initially you have to put in the system through that settings, and then if we go into the settings here, here's this asphalt shingle roof that's on the list now. And so the other thing to keep in mind here is this system is part of the roof product system. So the other new thing in this release is systems. We had kind of one set of systems, and the systems are, if you haven't seen these before, they're really set up to be able to organize materials. And kind of the classic example is, maybe you have your deluxe line and then you have your economy line. And in your deluxe line, you have these specific panels, and we have these deluxe colors. And then you have the economy line, which has these other panels, and there's a separate set of colors that they go with. And then for each of those, you have specific trims that belong with that system. So with the systems, you can set up a deluxe system, you can add in specific panels for the deluxe, and you can add in specific colors. And then if you go into a job and you pick the deluxe system for a job, you're only going to see the panels and the colors and the trim that apply to that particular system. You're not even going to be able to choose other materials and stuff that don't belong in that particular deluxe system. Or if you switch over to the economy system or economy product line, you might think of it as, and you're only going to see the materials in the economy line. In this case here that we're looking at, Royden has one set up for just asphalt shingles. And in this case, these are just going to be used for the roof product system. You can set up systems specific to roofs, to ceilings, to walls, to the wainscot, and then have this upper wall section. If you have a different liner and panels going up above the gable break or a break in the wall, and then the interior wall liner, interior wainscot, and then you can do this for overhangs as well. So what this means now is you can have these separate systems set up for these different types of conditions on the building, and you can have specific set of systems, for different purposes. And you'll see how this works in a little bit. We'll go into the job here. So keep in mind, this one that we're looking at is just for this roof system. This one's just set up for the asphalt. So we're dialing in here really specifically to a roof system and a specific material and all the kind of colors. And so this is where we get into those colors that Royden set up. In this case, we're going to be selecting colors in order to get different shingles. But then there are like trims and specific ridges set up for this system as well. But you could do something similar for like an overhang system or interior systems or your wainscot or walls or ceilings. So that's all new. This does get difficult to explain here quickly. We're going, again, I'll just repeat myself, we're going to go into a whole session where we're going to dive into these and how you can use these. But okay, so we have this system here. It's set up for shingles. We have those colors set up. And just to add another layer of fun to these, we also have these new assemblies. And so I'm going to click over into the sheathing assembly in this case, and there are trim assemblies as well. And so these all kind of tie together, and you'll see when we get into a job, hopefully it'll make a little bit more sense. But Royden has a asphalt shingle with 5/8 OSB and epaulet sheathing assembly set up. And so when I click on this, it's going to show me over here for this particular assembly, I have a primary material that is this Owens Corning asphalt shingle. So this is just a general material from my material database and my sheathing. And he's picked that, and I guess maybe I'll double click on here and we can go into the actual kind of setup of it. But so here's the name of that assembly. Here is this primary material that he selected. You can drop this down and we could select a different material from our sheathing. So in this case, he has this Owens Corning asphalt shingle set up in his material database, and he has it selected. It's being used as a roof material. And the thing about these assemblies is when this is selected, the shingle in a job, it's going to use these calculations down here automatically to be applied with this particular shingle. This is very similar to the packages, but these assemblies work a little bit differently to where they're tied into this primary material, and when these get selected, they're going to automatically come in. And you're going to see that also when we kind of tie in these systems that we set up and you're selecting this asphalt system, that all this stuff just kind of comes in automatically based off of that system. But so for these assemblies down here, Royden has added in these different types of materials, ancillary materials that come in. It's fasteners and deckings and the underlayment. And each one of these, if I double click on this particular one, he selected this coil roofing nail. He's getting 6 of these, 6 I guess, one of these for every 6 inches on center. And so this is just another material. For each one of these, there's kind of different ways of setting this up. For the OSB, we're going to get 30s of these let's see, one of these for every 30 square feet. Is that correct? Yeah. So he set up all these calculations for these different types of materials specific to this asphalt shingle. And you'll notice that he has other types of assemblies set up for agrib, standing seam has some different ones, brick has its own type of felt underlayment and different types of nails. There's one for drywall. So you can set these kind of things up, these assemblies and these systems for these different types of conditions. And you can set up trim assemblies as well. In this case, he does have a shingle ridge and a shingle vented ridge that have their own types of nails coming in with specific calculations. Yeah, so Royden has all these things set up in here for the colors, for these systems, and for these assemblies. And in this case, we're kind of focusing in on the shingles, but you can use these for lots of different types of conditions. So now if I go to the jobs, we'll go into a jobs here and just kind of apply this. And I have one here that I set up kind of a demo. And so we'll open this up and you'll see how these can get applied within the job. So this will take a second here to load up the materials and the pricing. And running a little slow with the GoToMeeting. We're also going to get into a 2D view coming up here in a second quickly. But okay, here's this model that I have set up, and let's see, let's go into our sheathing here. So I have this agrib is just coming in. On this main building tab, here are the product systems. And now before this release, and what you'll see right now in the current software, we just have one. We have this one product system. And this just kind of was an overarching product system for the whole job. It wasn't specific to roof or ceiling or wall. And you can still use these. But what we've done now is all these new product systems are available. And you'll notice that you can have match main. So that's just going to match whatever system you have for your main for each of these if you want. Basically what that's doing right now, because I have none, it's just, there's no product system set up for any of these. And that is going to be the default. If you don't use these product systems, you should not see any change or anything. These are all just going to be none. And they're going to be hidden. You won't even necessarily see these. So you don't have to use these, but you can opt into these. So in this case, I guess let's jump over here. So these are all set to none. No product systems are really in place at all right now. But if we go over to like the roof sheathing, we'll see here that there is a material selected, this Ag Rib 40-year 29 gauge plus. This plus means that this is an assembly that's being used. So even though there's no product systems, you can use assemblies and just select those assemblies. Here's actually this asphalt shingle assembly. Maybe I'll apply that, and we'll kind of see what happens here. It's not going to work out awesome for us, I think, because the colors are going to be a little bit funky here, I think. So yeah, it doesn't like this black color for this asphalt shingle. And we'll talk about that in a second. But so I selected an assembly. I guess if we go into the accessories, we'll see that it's applying some of these materials, these ancillary materials from that assembly. So you can just have these assemblies as materials, and then we'll just automatically put these in if you have them set up properly. And so you'll notice on this list we have a whole bunch of things that we can choose between straight up materials like we had before, or you can choose these assemblies. And if we go back here now, and as the other thing I'll point out is we have a bunch of colors here as well, including all these Owens Corning that we looked at. And so I kind of point all this out to show that if we go into this roof product system, and if we say asphalt shingle roof, so this is that system that we looked at. Royden has set this up to have specific materials, specific trims, and specific colors in this case to be used with this asphalt shingle roof, and only those can be used. So if we flip over to this product system, it is going to now just use the materials associated with this product system. And so now, if we go into these colors, the only colors that we have available are the ones that are associated with this particular product system. So we have this Owens Corning color, and then also if we go into our roof sheathing materials that we have available, it's only going to be things associated with the asphalt shingle, and in this case it's just that one assembly. So this is set up to where when I switch over to that product system, it's going to use this assembly that we set up. And so in this case, if we go back here now, we have a certain number of bundles of this shingle. It's coming in this particular color. If we do switch this color, we're going to get a different SKU here. So if I switch over to this brown wood, it is going to give us a different SKU, and there are different prices for this color. So, you know, this is set up to where you can get your pricing associated with these colors. Now we have this brown wood color. So that's part of that SKU that Royden set up. Also in this trim, we're getting this specific shingle ridge now as part of this roof. And we go into these accessories again, that's still using that same assembly that we looked at for the shingles. So just by switching over to that product system, I now have a shingle roof, and I have all the materials, ancillary materials, and the colors, and all these are on my material list automatically. I'm getting the trim I want with these. There is just some standard gable trim for this as well, and we're getting a specific ridge cap for these. So from that assembly, just by changing to that, all those things are showing up on the material list. Do have something going on here. So one thing I guess we'll have to be careful about, these are actually coming in, I think, as part of a package that we have set up for the sheathing fasteners. So in this case, with these metal, we don't need metal screws in this case. So we had a sheathing package set up automatically to come in, which we really just don't need with the shingle roof. So these are the kind of things you have to kind of work through. You know, this is, again, one of those things, it takes some work and some time to get these things set up properly, but once you get them set up, it should make it much easier to just kind of switch over to a shingle roof, and boom, you have everything that you need there. And there are some translations that go on between these packages. And again, I'm kind of running out of time here. We'll have a session specifically dedicated to these, but hopefully that wasn't too confusing. You kind of get an idea of how these colors, systems, and the assemblies can work together to make this really easy to get your material list set up quickly for different types of jobs. And again, in this particular release, it's not just the whole job. This is specific to roofs or walls or ceilings or overhangs and interiors. So jumping over to interiors, the other thing that you're going to see here is this 2D view. So we have our 3D view, and we still have everything. You can input openings here in the 3D view, but we also have a 2D view now, where if you click on that, it's just going to take you into this 2D view. You can't rotate this, But what you can do is you can come in and add doors and windows in this 2D view. And I've kind of run out of time here, so we'll probably have a whole nother session on this as well. And we're going to continue to work on this. This is just like the first stage of this 2D view input. And coming up, we really want to input interior walls here, where you could click and just drag and put in interior walls here in this 2D mode, and then be able to work with them from there. You could flip back to the 3D model and have your interior walls. But for what we have now, you can put in these openings in this 2D mode. And this is a couple things for you. I mean, the same kind of inputs where this is putting me in the center here, or up against the post, or up against this post. But if I click here in the center, we're also going to get some dimensions here. And so you can see you're getting some different views of where these dimensions are coming from. And you get a little change of your cursor here, like this 11'3". You can click on these, and if you say, you know, I don't want that to be 11'3", I want that to be 11'6", or whatever it may be, it's going to shift that for you. You can also hit this center. That's going to center it in this particular wall in this case. So you do have a center in the wall, and then you can come in and kind of just drag these around as well. And so we could come over here. I guess I'm going to add in a different, I'll put in an overhead door in this case. The same kind of rules are going to apply. So now we can come in here, depending on what your settings are. I could put an overhead door here. If we really wanted that in the center, we could just click on center. And I can come back over here, grab some different windows. You know, we can walk along, and maybe we just want these all in the center on this particular wall. And then if we're done here, we can hit return. It's going to ask you to save. It's going to have to do some refreshing. And these will now be in the 3D model once we place those in the model here. And looks like it's thinking about it. So now we have these particular openings in the 3D model. And we could come in and you can manipulate these the same way you could before, but we can also come back here and let's say, so we can do like a sweep select of these. So now I have all three of these windows selected. Right now you'll see the edit is grayed out. We're going to work on being able to edit these three. Maybe we wanted to change the header height of these, change the height or location of these, or something else about this window. And that brings up another point. We are going to get into, you know, being able to stack these. So we'll probably have a view where you could click on these and see this in kind of the elevation view and do some manipulation of that. That's in the future. But for now, you know, one thing we can do with these three select is we could just delete all three of these. So if you need to delete a bunch of these, we could just select everything in this building and just hit delete if you need to do that. I know that's one of those things that was kind of a pain before in the 3D model. So that's one of those improvements that this will help with. I think that's about it that I'll go into now. You guys can play around with this. You don't have to use it. If you know, or if you do want to, you can go in and play around with it. This is on beta. If you have a beta site set up, you can go in and play with this and mess around with it, but we will continue to work on this. And again, this is really a springboard to interior wall input. So we're hoping to use that 2D view as a way to make it much easier to put in these doors and windows, and also to get the interior walls. Pardon?
Don't forget lofts.
And lofts
Mezzanine.
as well. Yeah, and mezzanine. So this is kind of the first step, getting into all those kind of things. And we're going to continue work on that. And so I think, I guess a couple other quick things here. You may have noticed, well, maybe not, but we have gotten rid of these doormats on any sort of outputs that show this 3D view. Some requested, we maybe get some feedback if you want to see these left-right doormats on these, or the right in the front. let us know. We've just taken those out for now. So any of these kind of outputs, elevation, or these ISO views in different types of outputs you get of this 3D model, we're going to get rid of those doormats. The other thing I wanted to point out here real quick is we did a specific change here where on this particular porch, it has the shared roof. So this is an offset down 0, we call it. And so this is a shared roof. And you'll notice that I do have different materials on this rafter porch that I do on the main building here. And I also have different spacing. So we had a problem before where, because these were kind of seen as the same roof by the program, on this top layer, it wouldn't let you change these. That is now an option. So, you know, just as part of this, I have rafters, and then I have a 2x4 material on my roof, and I have 4-foot spacing as opposed to my 2x10 or something 2-foot spacing that I have on my main building up in my main settings. So that's an important thing to point out there, that you can now have these different rafter spacings and materials and have this offset down 0. That was a pretty important item to get in there. So I think that's everything I wanted to cover. It's a lot. As we get into the next release, we are going to give you the ability for the interior walls, for really the divider walls, to have different materials on side A versus side B. Right now you kind of get an exterior and interior. We're going to give you defaults to where you can have your interior walls come in with specific types of products, panels or sheathing or drywall as a default, and you can have different materials on one side of the wall versus on the other side, or you could have it be the same on both sides of the wall just as the default. That's going to be part of the interior walls as well. We're going to be working in the background on the input of the interior walls in the 2D view. That may not show up in the next 1.82 release, but it should show up in 1.83. And we're probably going to have some sessions where we'll probably do some working sessions where you could join in, and we'll kind of work through how to input those. So we're going to try to get a lot of input on how to input those walls over this next 1.82, but then you'll probably see the results of that in 1.83. Yeah, so there are some other bugs that have been fixed in here. We're going to continue to do some cleanup on some. We have some overhang kind of things, some bugs with overhangs in different conditions that we'll clean up with this next release. Some flexibility on the jam posts, between jam posts or on center posts. We're going to add in some flexibility there where you have the option of this can either stay as an on center post when you push it up against there, or you could have the jam posts. And we're going to do some work on packages for the e-modeler, which some of you have seen with the e-modeler program. We're going to have some more flexibility related to the packages. So that's coming up in the next release. And okay, I'm just going to leave it at that. I guess technically we have 5 more minutes, but we'll stick around as long as you guys need. So we'll kind of open it up to any questions that have come in, or anybody else in the SmartBuild team. If you see something I left out that you think we need to point out, feel free to jump in, or we'll just open it up for any questions that came in by chat, or you can unmute and we'll just kind of...
Sean.
Yeah.
Delmar asked, how do I push product systems with builders? That's a good question. If you could just expand on that. I know we're going to go further into, another webinar to discuss this deeper, but.
Yeah, that's a good question. I mean, basically,
the answer to that, Sean, is really simple. The builders have your materials, and your product systems are tied to your materials. So your builders are always going to have your product systems.
And they will start
and
seeing
your assemblies as well.
Yeah, they'll start seeing this. If they don't have access to Setup Wizard materials, so they will see the sheeting assemblies and trim assemblies, and they'll be able to create their own. So they may not have access to framing and colors and all the rest of that, but most builders, I believe, will have access to sheathing assemblies and trim assemblies. And they'll see yours, not be able to change them, but also be able to add their own to what they already have. Is
As
that
Sean
correct?
mentioned, the assemblies and product systems is a big change to how the software works. And so we are anticipating having another training webinar to go in depth into those aspects and to show you how Royden's setup is and how you can set up yours.
Yeah, and another, just to kind of thread on that for all of our customers, we've sent out an email blast letting everybody know we're going to have a whole series of educational seminars, primarily focusing on the implementation process. And as Mark pointed out, because these new assemblies are so powerful and have a lot of implications for setup, that we're going to make that the first session. So that we probably will have a session on that, and hopefully pretty quickly within the next couple of weeks. I urge everybody to think about attending that, because we're going to jump into that feature with some real depth.
Okay.
Mitch asked.
Mitch, sure. Sorry, go ahead, Mark.
Mitch asked, will it let me change the ceiling liner independently? And unfortunately, no, it will not. But that actually ties into Chris's question, which they'd like to see some more control added in the attached building and porch unit. So when you go to add an attached building or a porch, they'd like some more controls there. One of them would be ceiling, but others would be post material and spacing and truss carrier material. Timothy asked, could we also have the option for the post to terminate at the bottom of the truss? Yes, I think so. I'd really thought about that.
Most pole bar builders do run their trusses up, or run their poles up to the top of the trusses. That's why we decided to do that. I guess it would just be another option for post heights.
Are we talking about the porches specifically?
No, I think this is on buildings per se. Primarily a post frame building with trusses. I think he wants the post to stop at the top of the truss carrier, and then the trusses to sit on top of the truss carrier.
Gotcha.
Yes, that's correct.
Timothy?
Yes. So the problem is the only option right now is for them to go all the way up to the heel. And with the modeling that we have in there, it's showing a specific type of truss. And the type of trusses that we have I can't remember the word my boss used, but we don't normally make that type of truss. We have a flat bottom truss that goes all the way out. So our heel heights aren't, 1.5 feet. So we would normally just run our posts up to the bottom of the truss.
Yeah, you run a cantilever type truss tail. So
Yes.
that post ends up going up 1 foot or 2 higher than whatever the slope is from the heel. Right.
Right. So
Yeah,
what ends up happening is the software overestimates the length of the post needed, which adds cost unnecessarily for what we do.
Yeah, I could see that. I've seen that for a while and just kind of scratched my head and wondered when that question was going to come up.
Okay. Yeah, so, I mean, two ways to do that. One would be anytime you use an overhang style of cantilever, we could just stop the post at the top of the truss. The other is we could give you an option for where to stop the top of the truss.
Yeah, I mean, it could be a simple checkbox. Do you want it to stop at the top, or do you want to go all the way up?
Yep. Okay.
Okay.
And then what do you do on gables?
We normally stop. We would do the short post on the gable ends.
Okay, so you'd have them stop at the top of the truss, the same height as the regular post.
Yes, all the way around the building.
Okay. Okay.
Do you do anything to attach the post to the truss?
No, we just use the carriers.
They just like a stud frame wall, they just stick the trusses on top of the wall.
Sure. Okay.
Makes sense.
And brace down back into the other trusses for that data.
No, they just let them fall. They let them fall over.
Oh, okay. At least they have an answer.
Yeah, yeah. Okay.
Okay.
Let's see.
I got that one captured.
Yeah, we had a question. We had a question. How do we access the beta site?
There you go. I'll leave that to
Good
Paul.
question. If you look up at the address bar on Sean's screen here, you notice it says beta postframesolver.azureWebsites.net. That's how you access the beta site.
Right.
How you
I put a
access the
little-
regular site, you just put beta in front.
Yeah, I did put a note in there just to make sure everyone knows that we make a copy of the site usually when we push up a new beta, whenever we do the new development. I wasn't sure if we want everybody to just go up there and start playing around, but it's not connected to live. It will be old data, like maybe even a couple of weeks old. So go in there, enjoy the new features. Enjoy.
Feel free to play around with it, but don't
Yes.
try and use it for anything serious,
Right.
because it's not live data. So the good news is you can go to the beta site and try things like, well, what if I could change my material completely? You know that you're not going to mess with your production site. There's a link in the chat. Anyone wants to use that? But yes, that's a good point, Paul. We do regularly copy the live data over to the beta site. So anything you do on the beta site is subject to getting clobbered at any point in time. But it does give you the latest stuff that we deem ready for public consumption.
The other thing that happens with data site, so if you're on there, expect there to be bugs and expect there to be problems, right? That's why we don't want people on there. We push to the beta site to test, right? That's what we're testing for. We're testing for things to break. And honestly, the more people on beta site telling us something is broke, the better. And just know that that's what beta site is for, is to look for those bugs.
Yeah. And we know that you guys, your job isn't to test the software, but any time you can get up there and play around with the new functionality before it hits, particularly look at it in the context of how you guys do things. Because as you know, there's a myriad of settings here, and we can't possibly test all the combinations of settings. But if you get up on the beta site before a release and say, hey, when I do it my way, this bad thing happens, we can get that fixed before we release it and affect your ability to do production. So if you can, it can really help all of us in getting a really good, solid product up.
Sure. And on top of that, to add, I send out a beta email to our beta users. And if you're on there, I would really like to have your email and be a part of that email list. So I know I didn't want to just say, hey, everybody go on there, because I'd really like to keep track of who's on there, who's talking to me, who's having problems. So go ahead and contact support, give them your email, and just let them know, or let me know that you'd like to receive that beta email. It's just a primer email. It previews some of the functionality. It'll walk you through some of the new stuff and step by step on how to implement it or how to use it. So that's usually what I do. I try to keep track of the people that are on there and try to have conversations with them. I'll even do a few quick video calls with people if they have questions or if they want to see some portion of the software a little bit deeper. So
Okay.
And how do we get on that list?
I would like to just have your email. You could either put your email right in this chat message. I'll try to just copy you in to our list.
Or you can just email support and say, please add me to the beta list.
Right, right.
Either of those.
And,
all right, Timothy,
and
gotcha.
Did that beta link work for people?
It did for me.
Okay, and you just put in your logins like normal?
I didn't actually log in, but I can try it real quick.
Okay, I did it on my end and it seemed to work, so just want to make sure.
Roland said it worked for him, so.
Good deal.
Okay, yeah, so there's a couple of emails in the chat, Paul. Let's see, Daryl Geiser asked, he messaged support, but yeah, it's a good question. We talked about this yesterday. Getting the view-only link to be available within the open job. Sean, can you click on the job tab?
The job tab, go back
job.
to...
No, the job tab in the job.
Job review?
No, the job over on the right.
Oh, that one.
That job tab, yeah. So what we were thinking for this one, Daryl, was to just add this at the bottom of the job tab. So if you scroll down to the bottom there, down below this will be just to put a link down here at the bottom. If you have the ability to have the view-only link, we would include that here, and you could click and copy it.
What's the contact? I missed that, Mark.
The view-only link. We also thought about maybe including it in the outputs, so that when you click on output and click on output, Sean.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the reasons for that is this right here. If you've made changes to the model, it's going to ask you, would you like to save your changes before you go in here? And so now it's saving the changes. Now you can do your outputs. And if we also gave you a button in there that would allow you to copy the link, that would work as well.
Okay, yeah. So right now that's in the details.
Yeah, right now you have to save the job and go back to the job list, find the job, go to the details, and then click the link. Daryl's just saying, hey, I want it right here while I'm editing the job so I can quickly send this to a customer.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I don't know what's going on here. I think, Paul, you might have jinxed us. You hurt Beta's feelings.
Oh, I didn't do anything. Everybody's logging on.
You said there was bugs on Beta sometimes.
Is there a development going on? Did somebody just push something? No. Okay.
No, the last build on Beta was 16 hours ago. So. All right. Eric asked, going back to the rake angle, you stated we can do double channels. Is that an option to do on all frame lines? It's an option to do for any material. So you can specify, I have this material and it's a double angle. Just like you can specify it's a rectangular section or a C-section or an I-beam or any of those other shapes. We just added double C-section as an option. So you can just specify that for your material.
Yeah, I don't know, I might have broke that job potentially. So we were talking about, you go into the setup wizard. I guess Beta is kind of running slow. Oh well, I was going to demonstrate this, but.
Did you take the move yet up to Laramie yet?
Yeah.
Yeah, nice.
Yep. Sitting in sunny Laramie right now.
Yeah, so these are the options under profile. The default is dimension lumber, and that's what we traditionally supported. But we now support C-section, Z-section, rotated Z-section, and those are primarily for light gauge steel. I-beam, which could be light gauge steel, could also be cold rolled steel, red iron. We support back-to-back C, because we've had some customers who say, hey, I use light gauge steel back-to-back for my rafters. So that's a material that you can select. And then, as Sean mentioned, the angle bracket rotated, and the receiver channel are all available shapes as well.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Yeah, so I think that answered that question.
Mm-hmm.
Kevin, when I do an upload for a price update, that you'll send me a confirmation email, and I see a partial list of the lines updated. It just gives you a total number of lines updated. So he's saying, is it possible to get that full list? Basically, I'm trying to figure out which SKUs are not updating and go through and fix those, as they may have outdated SKUs or I input them out.
Not sure I'm understanding.
So if you go to pricing and you upload a file with new pricing information,
Mm-hmm.
then it will send you an email when the pricing update is complete.
All right. Yep.
And then just say, okay, this is what I did. I think what he's asking for is that he suspects that some of his products aren't getting updated. So Kevin, the best bet on that one is probably to reach out to support and work with them. The suggestion that I would have would be to download your current pricing. And then what I would do is, if it was me, I would download my current pricing, save that, and then I would make a copy of that pricing file, go through and change all the prices to a penny, and then upload that pricing file. And then I could look at my pricing and say, okay, who's not a penny? Because those are the ones that didn't get updated.
That might be a good candidate to do that on beta.
That would definitely be a good candidate to do it on beta. Yeah, if you go to the beta site and do that pricing update. But I think the best bet, Kevin, is to reach out to support so we can get that specific issue addressed offline. All right. Anything else?
I had a question. You may have addressed it while I was distracted, but adding a post spacing control and truss carrier control on like the attached building or porch field, like when you go to apply a building.
Yeah, we talked about that, Chris, in conjunction with the question about changing the ceiling liner independently. So when you go in and put in an attached building, you want to be able to control things like the porch material and spacing, the truss carrier material, and the liner, the ceiling liner. Does this have ceiling liner?
Sure.
We've also had people.
What do you think the ETA?
What's that?
What do you think ETA is for something like that? 1.90.
Probably not that far out. The other thing that we're thinking about is when we get to the 2D view, being able to do things like not just move your doors and windows around and add interior walls, but also to be able to have sort of a room view in that 2D view, where you can say, hey, show me my rooms. And it'll show you the areas that are enclosed by walls or porches, and allow you to click on that room and say, all right, for this room, I want drywall on the walls, I want it painted green, I want carpet on the floor, and I want ceiling. And be able to specify all those things on a room by room basis, rather than specifying them on an attached building basis or something like that. Because you might have a scenario where you've got a porch and there's a divider wall in the middle, and you want half of that porch to have ceiling on it and the other half to not have ceiling. So I think the idea of basing it on rooms. So in this scenario, in this particular model, you'd have two rooms. You'd have the porch and the main building itself, two separate. If you put some interior walls in one of these corners to outline an office or something like that, then you'd have three rooms. You'd have the big open space, you'd have the office, and you'd have. And my fantasy personally is that is something that I think people would really, it'd be easy to understand. You wouldn't have to say, where do I go to change this stuff? You go right here to change all this stuff. Or ceilings and things like that. Now for porch, for post spacing, things like that, yes, we can certainly put more controls in the attached building dialog. If you go back and go to
kind of like rafters.
Yeah, so I mean, if you click on advanced, we've got all of these settings that we've added, so we can certainly add more.
I would love to see that.
Yeah, it's just that if we went ahead and added everything, then this would become completely unwieldy. So we have to be careful to add it. It's a balance between easy to use and powerful.
Sure. I think the most critical on a porch like that, for that we don't already have settings for, would be the post spacing and material, and the truss carrier material, and the quantity, 2-ply, 3-ply, whatever.
Okay. Would that be the post spacing for just the outer wall, or would it be the side walls as well?
Primarily the outer walls, but if it's a gable, if you're doing actually an attached building, you would want to see for all three walls.
Okay. Okay. Good to know.
Got it.
All right. Anything else?
I do want to say this, just in case anybody's not getting an email because they don't want it exposed to everybody. There is a private chat if you want to send it to just Paul Hosberg. That's on the list here. So you could look at it down there at the bottom of the chat window. It'll say everyone. You open that up and you could look for Paul Hosberg.
Okay.
Anything else?
Maybe so. We will have a follow up on the systems and the assemblies and the colors and all that coming up pretty soon. We're looking at hopefully like a week. So again, keep an eye out for that, and we'll have another webinar coming up here for 1.82. Appreciate all your time.